What's up, YouTube? My name is John Jackson, and today I want to tell you how to take your Instagram stories from something that looks like this to this. So I want to show you my sort of formula, so to speak, on how I make Instagram stories and Instagram story templates. So without further ado, let's go into the very loud computer machine and talk about some Instagram story stuff. Alright, in After Effects, we're going to make a new composition, and to do that, we'll just hit the new composition button right here. We'll call this IG Story 01, and we'll set the width to 1080, the height to 1920, frame rate 24 frames per second, and duration 15 seconds. Okay. So typically, for an Instagram story, you need some sort of media, like a photo or video. So let's just drag a photo from my latest photo shoot with my lovely girlfriend, Amanda. And yeah, we have this photo of her drinking some coffee with her favorite toy, Longtail. If you want to check out the full series of photos, it is on the Instagram, @JohnJagsNee. Anyways, let's turn this into a pre-composition. So we have our media comp here. We're gonna hit Control-Shift-C, and we'll call this IG Story 01 _ media 01. Move all attributes, adjust duration, etc., etc. Okay, so now we have that. We need to reveal this media in some way. How are we gonna do that? We're gonna use shape layers. So go up to the shape layer tool up here. We'll hold Alt and cycle through until we get a rectangle, and we will double click that, and it'll create a shape the same size as our composition. So if we go into those rectangle properties, we'll see in the rectangle path, it's 1080 by 1920. We're going to unlink this, and we're gonna set this to 1080 by 1350, because that's the Instagram format for a vertical post, and that's how I formatted this photo. You could do any dimension for the shape. It really doesn't matter, just as long as your media fits within it. Now, it is a little big at the moment, so we'll relink that size and shrink it down just a hair. Okay, we'll add some roundness just as a stylistic choice. And then what we're going to do is we're going to animate this. So click on that shape layer, hit S, and then if you hold Shift and R, it will reveal the rotation property as well. We'll set a keyframe at the very beginning and set that to negative, say, 15. And then we will set the scale to, say, 0, because we want it to scale up. Move forward to about maybe 16 frames, 18 frames, somewhere in that range, and then scale it to 100%, and then the rotation to, let's say, 3. So it's slightly rotated just for funsies. We'll select those keyframes, hit F9 on your keyboard, or use your gaming mouse, and use your keybinds. We'll go to the graph editor by hitting this graph editor button. We'll select those keyframes and just pull those handles in, give it a little bit of love. So that's what our shape looks like. It is a little fast though, so I'm gonna actually move these keyframes out to the 1 second mark. So that shape will now animate in over 1 second. Pretty cool. All right, so what we're gonna do is going to select that shape layer, Control-Shift-C, and we'll pre-compose this, call it IG Story 01 _ reveal 01. Click OK. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to that media comp. We're gonna set the color of that to yellow, just because that's the most important thing. It's bright and colorful, so we know what we're working with. We're gonna set the track matte of the media comp to alpha matte. So it's gonna look at the top layer, and whatever the top layer is showing, wherever there's data, then it will reveal the actual comp. So what I mean by that is we lost what we're seeing here, but if we scroll through our timeline, we're gonna see that shape sort of come to life, as if that shape that we created in full white, now it's the picture. Pretty cool. All right, so what we're gonna do now, just to add a little bit more love to this, go to the effects and presets, and we'll type in transform, drop that onto our media, go to frame 0, and then set a keyframe on the scale, then go to the very end, and we'll set the scale to let's say 120. So it's just gonna scale up slightly over time. Not bad. Let's go to half res just for recording's sake. So it's a very subtle scale up. Now we need something else here. We need a background. So what we're going to do is going to hit Control Y on our keyboard, and we will call this BG for background. We'll drag this below all of our layers. We'll hit Control Shift C and pre-compose this. We'll call this IG story 01 underscore BG. Go in here and and from here, what we're going to do is add a gradient ramp. So we'll type in gradient and go to generate ramp and drop that on. Let's set this to a radial ramp. And because I know that the height of my composition is 1920, divide that by 2, that'll be 960. So the center of it will be 960. And then we will sort of scale that up, move the end ramp so it sort of comes out. We get a really nice soft fade. Now let's just change the colors a little bit. I do want the black to be on the outside, and then the inside, I want this to be maybe like a dark blue, a real dark blue, something like that. And then let's just bring in that gradient just a little bit. So it's a really subtle sort of look. Okay, next we're gonna add some like film grain. So to do that, hit Control Y once again. We'll call this fractal. Making a new solid to make a fractal texture. Go to the effects and presets, fractal, and look up fractal noise. Drop that on. We're gonna crank that contrast way up. If you hold Shift in your keyboard and change a value, it will bring it up by a lot more than just clicking and dragging without holding Shift. So bring that contrast up, then bring that brightness way down until we get these really subtle dots. Next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the evolution options, and we're gonna go to the random seed, and then we'll alt click on the random seed. And what that will do is create an expression. It's like a line of code that we'll use to sort of animate this. First, we're gonna type in posterize time 4, so it'll sort of have like a stop motion-y effect. Next, we'll hit enter, and on line 2, we'll type random, parentheses, 0, comma, any number that's greater than 1,000. So let's just say 9,000, 9,001. Okay. So we'll click outside the box, and now what's gonna happen with that is it's going to randomly generate a number for the pattern. And we get this cool sort of like film grainy texture sort of thing. So that's pretty cool. Next, we're gonna just add some noise to that. And noise and grain, just add noise, and we'll set that to like 3%. And then on the fractal texture layer, we'll just set the transfer mode to screen. And now we have these like film grainy, stop motion-y background. So that's pretty cool. That kind of does the background for us for now. You could obviously do more, but let's move on. So we have our reveal comp with the photo, we have our background. Now we need some titles and text. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to our project window, and in the output folder, select that just so that you have good file organization. In the output folder, create a new composition. We'll call this IG story 01 underscore title 01. Same settings, except the height, I want it to be 480 or 1920 divided by 4. You can see I kind of like to be OCD about some of my After Effects things, but it's really helpful if you're trying to align things mathematically and perfectly. So 480, click OK. And we have this rectangular comp. Let's go to this little drop-down menu here, and we'll go to Fit. So now we have our comp there. Let's make some text, since we're making a title. Double click our text tool, we'll type, let's say, new post. We just made a new post on Instagram, so I want to share it with people on the Instagram stories. So now we have our post. Control, Alt, and Home on your keyboard will center your anchor point of your layer in the center of that layer. And then if you do Control Home, it will center that layer within the composition. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make a shape layer. So double click on that shape layer tool one more time. Go into that rectangle tool, rectangle properties, scale that way down. Let's change the color of this to white, because white text on white background, no work. Maybe set this to like a dark gray and put some blue in there and bring the brightness down. Maybe bring up the saturation. Okay. Then we're going to unlink the size because there's a lot of space on the y-axis, but on the x-axis, I want the margins to sort of match. You could do this with expressions, but we'll talk about that in another video. Let's scale this down until it's the right size we want to, and then we will add some roundness just for fun. Cool. Let's animate this text. So we'll open up our text properties, go to animate, position, and we'll add a position animator, then go to add property and opacity. We'll set the position to say -33, somewhere in that range, and then set the opacity to 0. Now it's gone. What do? Well, we open up our range selector, set the offset to -100%, add a keyframe to that offset. Then we go forward, say 12 frames. So shift page down once and then page down 1, 2. Set the offset to 100%. And then we're going to go into the advanced properties. And this is very important. This way we can get some nice ease on our text animation. We'll set the shape of the animation to ramp up, and then we'll set the ease high to 65 and the ease low to 65. After we set the ease, let's see how that looks. Not bad, looks pretty simple. And then what we're gonna do is we're going to hide all of our text changes, and now let's animate our shape layer. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit Y on our keyboard to our pan behind tool, then we will drag it to the very top, and I have snapping on, so that will allow me to snap to the most mathematically perfect position there. It is directly on that top line. So now what we're going to do is we're going to hit S on our keyboard to reveal the scale property. We will unlink the scale and will only affect the second number, the vertical height of the shape layer. So we will add a keyframe at frame 0, go forward, let's say 8 frames. So page down 8 times, or yeah, that's about 8 frames. And then we'll set that to, actually just add a keyframe. And then at frame 0, set that to 0%. So now if we select those keyframes, hit F9 on our keyboard to ease them. What does that look like? Not bad. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to make sure that this text is only looking at the shape and will only show when the shape is showing. So we'll go to our effects and presets and we'll type in set matte. And we'll drag that on top of our text. On top of our text. Like so. Make sure we're looking at the shape layer. And then now the shape will only reveal the text. So we got that cool sort of look. Now, once the animation is done for our title, we're going to make a new null object. So go to layer, new, null object, and this basically just holds data within After Effects. It doesn't actually show anything. It's a cool little tool. We'll talk about that in another video. We'll select both our shape layer and our text layer and this little pick whip right here. Drag it to the null, and then with the null selected, we'll hit S to reveal our scale property. We'll make a keyframe at, say, frame 16 and jump to, say, frame 24, so like 8 frames forward. Add another keyframe and set that to, say, 120. So it kind of just like has a little pump scale up a little bit. Select those keyframes, hit F9, go to our graph editor, maybe pull in that second handle just a bit to make it pop. Not bad. But now let's bring this into our original composition. So let's go back to our project bin, and then from here we can click on our IG story 01, find our title in our project bin, and just drag it in. Let's solo this so it's the only thing that we can see right now. We can position it in the right spot. Hit this little dot button box right here. So now we only see our title. Hit Y to that pan behind tool, and then drag that anchor point to the very top. We'll hit P on the keyboard to reveal the position property, and we'll hit 0 on the second value, so it will mathematically be in the perfect spot at the very top. So now we have that title there. We can unsolo it and just see how that looks. Not bad. Now it is cutting off our photo comp, so what we're going to do is we're going to scale down the title just a little bit. Now I want to add a little bit more TLC. So we'll go to our effects and presets, transform, and then we will go here, and then we will just add a little bit of a skew, sort of like have it be oppositely aligned with that photo comp. like so. Not bad. You know what we can do? We can actually drag this down just a hair, the photo comp. And then maybe we can bring down the reveal comp by going into our shape layer and then just dragging that down just a little bit so it's positioned where we want. Very cool. Maybe change the skew so it's a little bit better there, and then reposition that media back to where it was originally. Rewind. Let's bring this back up. Cool. So here's where we're at so far. Now I want to add a second title. So what we're going to do is go back to our project window, go to our title comp that we just made. We'll hit Control D to duplicate that, and then we'll go into title 2. We'll make this like a swipe up sort of text animation. So let's delete that shape layer and that null object. We don't need them right now. And then what we're going to do is go back out of the graph editor, go to this text, and we'll type in swipe up. Cool. All right. So what we're going to do now is have it sort of come from the bottom up, as if it's like, hey, swipe up, that sort of like encouraging upward animation. So hit U on the keyboard, or rather UU, to reveal all the changed properties on that layer. We'll go to the position and we'll set it to 33 instead. So now that animation will come from the bottom up. Maybe bring it down a little bit more and bring out that keyframe just so it has a little bit more. Cool. That's nice and soft and fun. All right. So after we make that text animation, now what we have to do is put in a box, basically. So let's make a shape layer, double click that shape tool. And then from here, we have a shape layer with a stroke. If you don't see that, just make sure that the stroke is on by clicking here and turning off the fill by clicking here. And I have the stroke, it's set to 8 right now. I want it to be about 3. And then we'll go into those rectangle properties and scale it down so it fits. Right about there. Maybe a little smaller for the y-axis. Yeah. Okay, that looks good. Then from here, what we're going to do is go into our properties for our shape layer and add a trim paths. What that's going to do is sort of like trim the path, so to speak, so that it animates on. So from here, we'll open up our trim path property. At 1 second, let's set the end property to 0%, add a keyframe, go forward, say 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 frames, set it to 100%, select those keyframes, hit F9, and then if we hit U on our keyboard, it will just show us our keyframes, hold Alt and then left bracket, it'll create that endpoint on that layer. So now we got this sort of animating box coming on, and then from here, what we're going to do is duplicate that shape layer that we just made, and then we're going to move it forward in time just a hair, set the stroke to say 5, and then if we hit UU on that second shape layer, go into our trim paths, select the end property, and then we're going to copy it, Control C, then we'll go to the start property just above the end property and hit Control V, and that'll paste those keyframes. And if we take those keyframes that we just made on the start and scooch it forward just a little bit, we'll get a sort of like secondary little animation happening behind it. Now what I do want to do is select all my layers, hit U to just show my keyframes, select the keyframes on the shape layers that we just made, hold Alt on the last keyframe and just drag it out. And the reason why we're doing that is I felt the animation was a little fast, and by holding Alt on your keyframes and clicking and dragging, you can change the duration of that animation. So now it's going to be a little bit slower. Yeah, that feels a little bit better. Cool. Now let's hit U, select everything, hit U, and then make a null object once again. Control Alt Shift Y for those of you at home who like to use keybinds. Let's pick whip it to that null, go to the end of the animation, hit S, and then keyframe on scale. move forward, say 10 frames, and then 110, 120, something like that. Select those keyframes, F9, and graph editor, give that graph some love. All right, cool. Now we have our second title. Back to the Instagram story one, drag our second title in, and then we're going to move both of these titles to, let's say, the 2-second mark. And then the title 2 we will drag to the very bottom, move the pan behind tool to the very bottom, hit P to make it mathematically perfect, 1920, and then hit S, scale it down, and then add a skew. So we'll go to our title 1, effect controls, Control C on that transform, Control V. Now we got a slightly more biased sort of shape. Now, what's next? We gotta do a couple more things to make this be a little bit more lively. The first thing I want to change is the timing. I feel like the reveal is a little fast. So let's go into the reveal, hit U, and maybe just drag it out to, say, 1 second and 4 frames. So 28 frames now. We'll drag our titles to the 1 second and 4 frame. I'll have title 1 come in first from the very top, and then have title 2 come in maybe at like 1:18. So it's not super everything in your face. All right, not a bad start. Next, what we want to do is I want to add some secondary animation to our photo. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our reveal comp right here, which is really just a shape animation. We're going to duplicate that. We'll set the color of that to like peach or something easy to see. Maybe like pink. Yeah. And we'll drop that below our media. And we're going to take our media and our reveal and bring it to like the 112 mark, maybe 15 frames, 14 frames, somewhere in there. And then we're going to turn our reveal comp back on. So it's just this white shape sort of coming in. Now, what I want to do is add a fill. Let's add a fill. And for those of you who don't know, this is a third-party plugin that is free called FX Console. It just allows me to add effects a little bit faster, but you can use the effects and presets if you need to. Fill. Drag that on. We'll set the color of that to maybe like a nice dark blue, but not so dark that it's the same as the background. Make it different from the background. That's what I'm trying to say. So there's that. And then let's duplicate that, not the fill, duplicate the layer by selecting the layer, hit Control D, and then scooch that forward, say 3 frames, 2, 3, right there. And then we're going to change the brightness of that. So maybe go to the brightness and bring it up just a hair. And then we'll hit Control D again on that layer, and then we'll duplicate it and scooch it forward. If you hold Alt on your keyboard and page down, 1, 2, 3, it'll move that layer in time. And then we'll go back to that fill and maybe bring up that brightness a little bit more, maybe change the saturation. We just want different colors. And then maybe 1, 2, 3 frames forward, and we'll bring that media comp back here. So we got like, I'll show you really. Not bad so far. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to add some depth or dimension to this. So to do that, we're going to take our media comp and our reveal comp, and we're going to put it into its own composition so that we preserve the transparency of the layer. So we're going to take our reveal comp, media comp, select both of them, Control Shift C to pre-compose them. We'll call this IG story 01 underscore media source. Click OK. And we'll go into the effects and presets. We'll type in drop shadow, or just drop. We're going to add a drop shadow to this. That's what I'm trying to say. We'll set the opacity to like, say, 80, and then let's see, how does that look? We'll bring the distance out, and then we'll bring up the softness just a little bit. Now I'm on this big kick right now, so I'm going to set it to a nice bright color, maybe a light blue. Something like that, and then just give it a little bit of depth so we can sort of like see it pop out from the background. Maybe just set it to white, 100%, and bring the softness out. So, And then we can take that drop shadow, drop it onto our titles. Maybe not under title 2 because it's a pretty minimalistic part of the logo. See how that looks. Not too bad. Actually, we should make sure that it's preserving those properties. I don't like it on title 2, for sure. So get it off of title 2. But on title 1 and the main comp, it looks pretty good. To give this a final bit of love, we'll hit Control-Alt-Y on our keyboard, and we'll add a couple effects. So first we're going to add a noise effect, and what that will do is basically just add a little bit of grain to it. It helps get rid of like the digital feel of it. So let's set this to say like 5% maybe. That might be too much, that might be too little. It's really up to you. What are you looking for? One of the things I like to do is I'll add a wave warp effect, so it adds like this sort of like very, very subtle glitchiness to it. So we'll type in wave warp, drag that on, set the properties, the wave type to noise, set the wave height to 1, and set the direction to 0. And if you zoom in here, we get a very, very subtle sort of wavy effect. Next, we'll add a vignette. And then we'll decrease the amount by just a bit and move the position so it's over the face. I want the focus to be right there. It's basically just darkening the edges outside of that one position that I want, because I want the face to really pop out. And then the last thing, if I wanted to, is I could go into some of these portions, like let's say this title, add a glow to it. So just type in a glow, because that's always fun. Stylize glow, and then bring the radius up by a bunch, and then the intensity to like 0.025. Really, really subtle. Something like that. Maybe change the vignette a little bit so it's not so dark. And if you're feeling really spicy, you can add an optics compensation. So what that'll do is basically add some like sort of distortion to the entire thing. So we'll just set it to like maybe 30, and it'll give it this, oh, what's happening? It's warping. But if you reverse it, now we got this cool sort of like warped look around the edges, as if it's like a fisheye lens. So yeah. Those are some extra little things you could add to it, but really what I wanted to show you is the foundation of a good Instagram story animation. You need a photo or a video, and you need to have it transition or reveal in some capacity. So you drag in your media, and then you reveal it with shapes or do some cool fancy animation with a reveal comp, as we'll see right here. Very simple shape animation that you could change to anything you want. You could just go in here, turn off that shape, alt-click on your shape tool till you get to the hexagon, and then double-click that, and then make sure we have a fill on it, set it to white, not that it matters, then take those animations on the original, copy it, and paste it. Now we got that, and then if we go back to our original comp, hey, look, now it's a pentagon. And if you go in here and then go into the Polystar properties, Polystar path, and type 6, now it's a hexagon. And if you go back in here, it's interactive, it's procedural. It does the cool thing for you for your Instagram post. So I hope you learned something. Let me know if you did. And if you did not, feel free to roast me in the comments, because I want to make sure I'm helping you. And if I'm not helping you, damn it, I want to make sure I'm helping. So that's it. Have a wonderful day. As of May 15th, 2020, we have 250 subscribers on YouTube. So for all of my new friends, thank you very much. For those of you who have not subscribed, I do try and shout out my subscribers. Just say, hey, what's up? Thanks for joining the party. But sometimes that information is private, which I totally understand. So yeah, if you don't want to shout out, let me know. But happy to welcome you to the family anyways. Thank you very much, and until next time, my name is John Jacksoney. I appreciate you, and I will leave you with this. Remember to eat your protein. In fact, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. I'll see you next time. Bye. High five, because I lost my lens cap. Actually, I didn't lose it, but bye. Face up.